For the last several years, the corporate narrative around generative AI has centered on a specific fear that intelligent software is being deployed as an automated executioner of human labor. That fear is largely fueled by theoretical exposure models and anecdotal media headlines. However, there is a significant gap between theoretical risk and operational reality. This document outlines a 2026 study from corporate finance platform Ramp and workforce analytics firm Revelio Labs, led by researcher Don Lyon. It tracks a data sample of over 21,000 U.S. companies across a 5-year timeline. To determine the actual impact on the workforce, Lyon's team looked past sentiment surveys and tracked the objective reality of corporate transaction records. They took actual corporate card and bill pay pipelines and mapped them directly to live workforce profile updates. The data indicates a specific deviation from the common expectation. For organizations that pass a specific threshold of investment, generative AI acts as a scale accelerator, expanding total headcount rather than reducing it. Understanding the real trajectory of the workforce requires ignoring the hype and following the evidence in the corporate money trail. Organizational outcomes depend heavily on adoption intensity. Integrating AI into an enterprise is not a binary choice. It requires a sustained financial commitment. This chart displays the strict filter the researchers applied to the data. To separate serious organizational implementation from casual testing, they only tracked firms with a sustained spend of at least $100 per month for 3 consecutive months. For the companies that barely cleared this bar, the low-intensity spenders, the results were stagnant. They saw no statistically significant changes in their workforce. This contrasts sharply with the high-intensity spenders, where the technology is treated as a core utility rather than an experimental tool. When the analysis splits the dataset horizontally between these two groups, the divergence in performance is immediately visible. This bar chart shows that companies making the largest AI investments relative to their size actually expanded their headcount by 10.2%. Meanwhile, the results for low-intensity spenders remained flat, suggesting that half measures do not trigger organizational growth. An organization must reach a critical mass of intensity before the investment begins to drive a scaling loop. This intensity requirement explains why quarterly ROI scorecards often look underwhelming in the months immediately following adoption. These early assessments often overlook the influence of time. There is a measurable integration lag built into the deployment of these tools. This timeline tracks the first 5 months post-adoption. During this window, the headcount lines for high-intensity adopters and non-adopters overlap perfectly. In this initial phase, the organization is busy building workflows, training its users, and integrating models into daily production. This is a learning curve that requires upfront effort before any capacity expansion becomes visible in the data. It isn't until the 6th month that the organizational chart finally begins to shift, with high-intensity adopters pulling away from the baseline through month 12. The research identifies this specifically as a 6 to 12-month lag window. Integration takes time to translate into measurable capacity. This proves that enterprise AI is a structural integration rather than a plug-and-play software update. Leaders must plan for a 1-year lag before expecting headcount expansion. To understand this expansion, we have to look at who is actually being hired. There is a persistent concern that AI will eliminate the bottom rung of the career ladder for junior developers, analysts, and support agents. However, the behavioral data from high-intensity adopters shows the opposite of this common assumption. This figure from the Lyon study shows that for these firms, entry-level headcount did not shrink, it surged by 12%. We see these firms expanding capacity across multiple departments, including sales, engineering, and administration. Junior workers' share of the total corporate workforce in these organizations actually increased by more than 1 percentage point. This indicates a capacity multiplier effect. When AI makes junior staff more productive, firms have a financial incentive to hire more of them to scale their output. The technology is functioning as an expansion mechanism for production, rather than a replacement for these roles. By investing heavily, these firms are effectively widening the gates for entry-level talent. However, these workforce gains are not distributed evenly across the entire American economy. The firms realizing these gains were systematically different before they ever adopted generative AI. As this map shows, the high-intensity spenders are deeply concentrated in California and knowledge-heavy coastal tech hubs. The gains are also clustered by sector. While the information and professional services verticals are glowing brightly, sectors like hospitality and healthcare remain relatively dim. This list summarizes the profile of the current winners. They are typically larger in scale, engineering-focused, and often venture-backed. For these companies, AI creates a compounding effect, accelerating the growth of organizations that were already tech-fluent. While the expansion is real, it is currently localized within specific segments, contributing to a growing divide between sectors. The overarching takeaway from these 21,000 firms is that AI acts as a scale accelerator, not a job executioner. The data suggests a direct correlation between investment depth and organizational outcomes. High-intensity spenders saw significant expansion, while half measures yielded no measurable return. For job seekers and new graduates, the strategy is to identify these high-intensity spenders, as they are the firms actively expanding their capacity. Any strategic roadmap must also account for the 12-month integration lag before expecting to see these results on the organizational chart. The full breakdown of these workforce metrics is available in the Ramp and Revelio Labs working paper at this reference. The future workforce reflected in this data is larger and more productive, built on a scaffolding of high-intensity investment. The expected AI job apocalypse is a theoretical ghost. The empirical reality is a race for capacity, and the winners are those who commit the most capital to the shift.